Hey, this is C&D channel. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my TUF Brazil 3 finale post-fight analysis. Overall, I actually liked the card as far as entertainment value goes. Most of the fights are actually pretty good. There aren't too many that were just total grinders or anything like that. My picks are great, actually. I got 11 out of 12. The only one that I missed was Gaston Umalata versus Paulo Thiago. As far as bonuses go, Stipe Miocic and Warley Alves got performance of the night, while Souza versus Souza and Adiva got fight of the night. One thing to note about this card, and it's actually a narrative that the UFC seems to be doing, I don't know if it's intentionally or unintentionally, is a lot of this Russia versus Brazil fights. You know, Umalata versus Thiago, for example. Yakovlev versus Maya. They're kind of going. I noticed that they matched those guys up a couple times. Actually, I don't really know if that's by design or not. Otherwise, yeah, you got some good prospects on this card that got wins. And, like I said, the fights, pretty fun. Good amount of knockouts in here. Couple, let's see, you got the rear naked choke there. Guillotine there. A couple submissions here and there. So, you know, not bad. Not bad at all. Let's get started. Stipe Miocic beat Fabio Maldonado by TKO. 35 seconds in the first round. What can you really say about this fight? You know, it lasted less than a minute. It was a squash match coming in, unless Stipe was just absolutely unprepared or something. This is how the fight was going to go. Maldonado has a really good chin, but he's fighting a guy that's like a real heavyweight. You know, I don't even know if Stipe's I don't think Stipe is like a blown up light heavyweight either. I think he's a legit heavyweight. Not much to gain from this, you know. A short night for Stipe, and he got a performance of night bonus. So, you know, it's, you know, high risk, low reward in a sense. But actually, now it became, you know, it's not even that high risk. Actually, it's kind of low risk. But he got a nice reward for the fight. Maldonado should just go back to 205, and you know, he can always beat lower tier guys. I don't know if he can beat mid-level guys, but you know, it's just how it is with him. You know, and so Maldonado should probably just fight more lower to mid-tier guys. While Stipe should probably just fight more. Stipe should fight like Junior Dos Santos next, because he was originally supposed to fight him anyways. You can also go, even though guys coming off a loss, it is heavyweight, so you know, Josh Barnett or Bigfoot would also be good fights for him next. There's really not much to say from this, you know, because it's a fight that Stipe was expected to win, and he won. Next fight after that, Antonio Carlos Jr. beat Vitor Miranda by unanimous decision. You know, Miranda, he's a bit older. He's in his mid-30s. Antonio Carlos Jr., you know, he had like one attack. It was kind of a rushing in, throw punches and a kick, get him against the cage, work his ground. And that's kind of how the fight went. I think Carlos is probably gonna. I think he said he's cutting to middleweight, if I'm not mistaken. He's only he's not even. I don't even think he's 25. He's like 23 or 24 or something like that. So, you know, it's just one of those things where he is still a prospect. If he goes to middleweight, I mean, he's still a young prospect. I think he can get wins at middleweight. You know, he still needs to develop his game, especially his stand-up. His ground game's really good, though. And, you know, I don't know about his ceiling or anything like that, but he's young enough, and I heard he's training with the right people. So, If he does choose to go to middleweight, it's more lower to mid-tier guys of his division. If he goes to he shouldn't say at heavyweight because he'd just be terribly undersized. He could also choose to go to light heavyweight, which honestly needs more young talent. So there's good options for him at the very least as far as what he can do moving forward. Vitor Miranda, if they decide to keep him, he'll probably fight at like 205 or 185. Just more lower to mid-tier guys for him. Next fight is that Wally Alves defeated Marshall Alexander Jr. by submission. I kind of expected this outcome because Marshall Lyoto Alexander Jr. isn't Lyoto Machida. He gets over one. He is more susceptible to getting pressured. Alves would start with like a body kick and then follow up with punches, maybe get him up against the fence. Really didn't allow Marshall to be in a good range or anything like that. Alves is really young too, trains at an X Gym. Pretty well-rounded guy. Striking, grappling. He has good clinch takedowns, and his jiu-jitsu, solid. And he does have power in his strikes. He did announce that he is planning to cut down to what he said is his normal weight of 170. It definitely is a more stacked division, so it's definitely going to be a lot harder to get noticed. There's a lot of prospects in 170. Gunnar Nelson, Brandon Thatch, Alex Garcia. They're all a lot of them are blue chip prospects too. So it's a division that's harder to get noticed. But he is a good talent. He does have from what I can see now, considering how little fights he has, I think it's his only 6th or 7th fight. Maybe 8th, less than 10 fights. Pretty well-rounded skill set, actually. So I think he has potential to be a top 10 fighter in the future. He's really good. Like I said, really well-rounded. He has all the skills necessary, trains at a good camp. So I'm curious to see, his progression at 170. I don't know where they can really start him off, per se. I can't name any one guy. I think they should get more lower to mid-tier guys in the division, really. Marshall Alexander Jr., whatever weight division he's still in, if the UFC gives him another fight, it's more lower to mid-tier of the division. I don't know about his ceiling. He didn't look great in this fight. I don't know if he can replicate what Lyoto's been able to do in MMA. I don't know if Alexander utilizes it, that karate style. Well, he doesn't utilize it as well as Lyoto. I don't know if it's very effective for him either at this point. Even in Ultimate Fighter Brazil, his semifinal fight, some people said that a lot of people thought he lost, actually. I think it was to Demente. I'm not 100% sure. I think it was to Demente, though. So, nonetheless, good win for Alves. He said he's cutting to 170. See how he goes from there. Next fight after that, Damian Maia defeated Alexander Yakovlev by unanimous decision. I will say this. Maia's transitions to mount looked seamless. Honestly, the guy just take down, and sometimes he'll land and mount, or he'll pass the mount, and just beautifully and very seamless. It looks easy for him to pass the mount. When he was on mount, he didn't opt to go for any submissions except for the end of the 3rd round, where he went for an armbar, which I thought was there the whole time because of the way that Yakovlev was defending. Yakovlev's arm was underneath Maia's armpits. I thought the armbar was there, considering where the position of Yakovlev's arms wrapping. He's very much bear hugging So, that lack of submission attempts from Maya, not, definitely made it so it went to decision, and then made it a little more of a grinder, I suppose. Maya did drop Yakovlev in the first round, but, I gotta say, I think we're starting to see the, the downward decline of Damian Maia. To be perfectly honest with you, I mean, he's one of my favorite fighters. Love his guard passing and whatnot. I know some people said this, and I might have to agree. We may see less offensive submissions from Maia, stemming from the Jake Shields fight. I remember one guy said that, he took Jake Shields' back, and Shields would shrug him and warm him off, end up in TUF, ended up winning in the judges' scorecard. And maybe Maia's taking the cue that he can't be on the bottom. Maybe he shouldn't do fight so aggressively for the submission because he might end up in the bottom. Who knows? Maybe so that might be what we'll see from Maia moving forward. I can kind of see that. The other argument, though, is guys know that Maia's just so good on the ground that they get in a defensive shell and just don't open up any submissions for Maia to get to. So, there's that aspect as well. But I kind of have to agree. Maia's like in his mid-30s now. He's fought at a pretty high level. I don't know. I don't think he's been doing MMA for that long, but just with his overall age, pretty much just his age, and the fact that he's been just fighting at the highest level, more or less, probably hurts, his, I guess, progression, because I don't see him getting better, and I think he's just at an age where he's like getting worse, to be perfectly honest. Which isn't bad because, dude, this guy can take down a lot of guys. This guy takes down wrestlers, so that's the thing with Maia. He's still, that's not to say doesn't have top 10 skills. He does. As far as the Maia should get next, probably Tarek Safdien, or maybe like the winner of Stun Gun Kim versus Hector Lombard next. He should still fight top 10 guys. Yeah. As far as Yakovlev goes, I can't say he looked good in defeat. I mean, he just got mounted a lot. I don't want to give him that much credit for surviving. You know what I mean? He looks like he could be pretty good, though. I think he's still pretty young. So just more lower to mid-tier goes to the division for him. Next fight after that, Robert Peralta defeated Honey Jason by split decision. I'll say this right now. I am very proud of this pick. From what I heard, that Peralta was, I think they said on the broadcast, like 3-1 underdog. And just really glad to have picked him to win this one. I was kind of leaning towards Honey Jason. But then, when you do predictions, I think you kind of realize, you get what you should and shouldn't value as far as predicting fights go. I mean, you can analyze the skills that these guys have. And I knew that Robert Peralta hits hard and may have the better stand-up. He had showed a good chin against Jason. Jason will sometimes brawl. It fits into Peralta's wheelhouse. So the thing so you gotta ask yourself, hey, why is this guy 3-1 favorite then? And it's like, well, he's an Ultimate Fighter winner. He's something more of a name, I guess. A little more height. But do you want to value that? That he had won the Ultimate Fighter, trains at a good camp, so that's something to value and take seriously into consideration. But otherwise, what is it about his skill set that you want to value? So I'd say he's better on the ground than Peralta. So you'd probably want to value that. But the fact of the matter is, can Jason take it to the ground? And I was like, nah, Robbie Peralta's not that easy to take down. And when he did get taken down, he managed to scramble back to his feet. So, with all those factors, I remember that Sam Cecilia managed to get into a good brawl with Honey Jason and hit him clean. And of course, we saw Jeremy Stevens knock Jason out. So, that's another thing. His stand-up defense isn't that good either. Against a guy who's a pretty good kickboxer. And Jason doesn't have footwork like that. Akira Karasani managed to use a lot of footwork on Peralta. Jason just doesn't have that. So when you put all those factors together, it's like, oh, hey, forget the hype. Forget that he's the more well-known fighter. And looking closely at the skill set, I thought the fight could have gone either way, to be perfectly honest with you. But the fact that it was not close, it's not a bad idea to pick Robbie Peralta. That's the thing. It could have gone either way, and I could just be, I wouldn't be saying this if one judge thought differently. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think this was, I don't think there was a clear winner in this fight per se, but I didn't think it was that far out of the realm of possibility for Peralta to beat Jason. I thought they were actually a lot more equally matched than apparently what the betting odds put out. With that said, Honey Jason, 30 years old. He was something of a prospect, but one thing about Honey Jason is he reminds me of a prospect like Roger Huerta was when he was rising up in the ranks. He can beat the lower tier guys pretty easily, pretty dominantly. But there's a level of competition that he'll beat, but it's kind of hard. Like I said, Sam Cecilia. He didn't have the easiest time with Sam Cecilia. You know what I mean? And then Jeremy Stevens managed to knock him out as well. So it's just one of those things where it's like, he's well-rounded. He tends to brawl, which makes things 50-50. And, I can't really say much as far as his upward mobility. I think what we see from Jason, if we see improvements, it's going to be pretty slight. He can definitely still get wins at 145. He might even want to consider cutting down to 135. I think he's fought there before, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that would just be a lot better, probably a better weight class for him at this point. Robbie Peralta, I remember his fight with Akira Karasani, and he lost, and I was just like, man, I always called him and Felipe Arantes, actually, dark horse prospects of the division. 28 years old. He got pretty well known when he won a Strikeforce fight against Hiroyuki Takaya. And since then, he did really well in the UFC. Getting some knockouts and whatnot as well. So he was definitely something of a dark horse prospect. After this fight, it's hard to say if he'll get better. He probably could reach his potential if he gets together with a better camp. But he is a good fighter. He is a good prospect. He's always dangerous on the feet. Pretty tough to take down as well. Showed a good ability to get back to his feet when he was taken down. So, I don't know if I'd consider him a dark horse prospect still, just because, what I saw from him in this fight is kind of what I've seen from him in other fights. I don't really know if he's improving that much, so I can't really call him much of a prospect. It's tough to say. Maybe in this next fight, we'll see more aspects of his game or something like that. But otherwise, there's a lot of guys who can fight at 145. I mentioned Felipe Arantes. Nicholas Backstrom beat Tom Niinimaki. Kevin Souza, who won against Marcadiva. Maybe a Diego Brandao even. There's good fights for Robbie Peralta. As far as Honey Jason goes, just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. Get on to prelims. Rashid Magomedov beat Rodrigo Dam by unanimous decision. Rashid Magomedov's a good fighter. I'm curious to see where he goes from here. He has good stand-up. He's very patient about his stand-up, which I like. And his takedown defense is pretty good. What can I say? He shows a good skill set. He's fighting in a division at 155 that is stacked. So, it's going to be really hard for him. He's on a 2-fight win streak, and people probably don't know who he is. Because he keeps fighting on, these prelims. And kind of just falling under the radar. He's just like a guy. So he's definitely going to have to pick up a lot more wins in order to get noticed. Just more mid-tier guys for him at this point. He beat Tony Martin, Rodrigo Dam. He can fight a little higher up the card now, maybe like a Mitch Clark, He's kind of around that level. Even though he's coming off a loss, Ally Quinta maybe, or... Jeez, who else? Who else is, Yeah, I can't really say, because anyone else, it's kind of higher up. But, good win for Rashid Magomedov. That's Rodrigo Dam, he's not much of a prospect anymore. He's kind of like a low-level gatekeeper, I suppose. Just more lower to mid-tier guys at the division for him. Hey, next fight off that, Elias Silverio defeated Ernest Chavez by rear naked choke in the third round. Moving forward, I'm really high on this guy. I think very highly of Elias Silverio. When he beat João Zeferino in welterweight, I thought, wow, this guy's pretty solid. He showed good takedown defense, good striking. Then he beat Isaac Valley Flag, and I was like, this guy's pretty good. His only weakness is finishing ability. Fights Ernest Chavez. Doesn't look great, to be honest. Ernest Chavez was very game. Didn't look great, but Elias, man's got a rear naked choke. Good for him to get a finish. Because I think he still lacks finishing ability, but, this is a good start. He finished an opponent here. You can tell he's a really big for the weight class, for one thing. But he's very well-rounded. I mean, especially when he's on top. He has some pretty good top control. His wrestling's not too bad, and his striking's not too bad. He's just a real well-rounded guy. Big for the weight class. Still young. He's on a, 3-fight win streak in the UFC now. Time for him to get higher up in competition. Maybe even a Michael Chiesa. Danny Castillo wouldn't be too bad. Those are pretty good names. Ramsey Nijem, Tony Ferguson. There's some good fights for Elias Silverio out there, and there's probably other guys because lightweights are so stacked. I can probably name more guys. Those are the ones I can really think of off the top of my head. That's kind of around his level. Ernest Chavez. I don't know if he's. Because Elias Silverio looked like a huge 155er, and he looked one weight class bigger than Ernest Chavez. Makes you wonder if Chavez should just cut to 145, if possible, or if Elias is just that big. Otherwise, just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division for him. Next fight was that Ghassan Umalato defeated Paulo Thiago by unanimous decision. I don't think Umalatov got that third round. I gave the third round to Paul Thiago. I can't really say Umalatov's that great of a prospect. I think he's like 31 years old now. Striking's alright. His takedown defense was pretty good against Thiago. Otherwise, there's nothing about him that really stands out. Or, I think he should just, at best, he could prove me wrong, but from what I see from him now, he looks like he'll probably be stuck in like mid-tier purgatory at best, His skills are just alright, Paul Tiago, he's not the most winningest fighter. I know people like him, but I like him too, And funny thing about this is I probably picked him because I like the guy. The whole Bope thing and whatnot. His wins. It's funny because when you think of Paul Tiago, the first thing that comes in your head is, oh yeah, that guy who beat the AKA guys, Josh Koscheck and Mike Swig. You know what I mean? That's the thing. And, you tend to almost or for me at least, I tend to overvalue that a lot of times when I pick Paul Tiago to win. And then he ends up losing because he's also a guy that looks like he's just getting slower. Definitely looking like a guy on the decline, and his chin just isn't holding up very well either. Quite honestly, I like the guy. I'm a fan of his, but at this point, I don't know if he serves. I don't think he serves much of a purpose in the UFC. He's just getting older. He might get, I can see him getting cut. I think he's like 2 of his last 8. That's his win record. I want to say 2 or 3 fight losing streak as well. So, yeah, it's not a good look for Paul Tiago at this point. Next fight after that, Kevin Souza. I guess I don't have to call this guy Edamilson anymore. Defeated Mark Adiva by TKO in the second round. Souza, was coming off a pretty long layoff. Look at his skill set. In a sense, it almost surprises me that he lost to Orantes. Just because, or he beat Orantes. Just because, he tends to only show, 2 moves or something. It's like he has, 2 moves or something. He has a straight right, which he lunges with, and Adiva was able to counter because he was lunging with it, and a left hook. And so Adiva did a lot better than I thought he would against Souza. He managed to counter pretty well. Managed to stay in the pocket and even get some clean hits on Souza. And Souza's weakness, I remember seeing it even when I was scouting him before he came to UFC, is the guy does not check leg kicks at all. And it kind of showed in this fight. Nonetheless, it's still a good win for Souza. I think he could still get better. I think he's still pretty young. But, there's definitely some holes in his game that he probably needs to work on. For the same guys I mentioned for Peralta, I'd probably name for Souza as far as next opponents, Brandel, Backstrom, maybe and Robbie Peralta next. Adiva, he had fight of the night. Didn't look too bad and lost here. Won his last fight. He's Filipino. He's not a bad fighter, actually, for a guy with only 7 fights or so. He has staying power in the UFC. He'll probably just get more lower to major guys in the division. And on the Fight Pass prelims, Ricardo Demente Albru beat Wagner Silva by rear naked choke in the second round. This fight was this fight was Albru. The start of this fight was Albru just winging overhand rights throughout the whole fight. Yeah, I think one connects, drops Silva, gets rear naked choke or something like that. I forgot. Wasn't terribly impressed. Nonetheless, it's nice that he got a finish. But just more lower to major guys at the division for him. These guys. Next fight I thought Marcos Rogério de Lima defeated Richardson Moreira by knockout in the first round. With de Lima, I remember him in Strikeforce, and during that time he was actually a pretty hyped prospect at that point. I don't know what weight class he's going to fight at, if it's either 185 or 205. They can definitely use him. His stand-up's good. He has good Muay Thai. He showed, he broke out the clinch, landed the punch, dropped him, got some follow punches. If I'm not mistaken, that's how the fight went. and or I think he just punched him once and dropped him, and I think that was over. He got the knockout. Either way, his stand-up's pretty lethal, you know. And he is fighting in divisions that he could get wins at. If he stays at, like, geez, I forgot what weight class this was at. Was this at 205? If he stays at 205, you know, he can definitely get wins in the weight class. I'd still need to see more of his grappling, though. But, yeah, just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division for these two. And finally, Pedro Munoz defeated Matt Hobart by TKO in the first round. Munoz showed some good striking here. You know, he's really well known for his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but his striking looked good here against Hobart. I know Hobart's a decent wrestler. He would, even if he got a takedown, he'd just be falling in Munoz's wheelhouse anyways. Pedro Munoz, still a prospect to look out for. He's still young. Trains around like Kings, MMA, and whatnot. You know, his stand-up's obviously improving, and his ground game's actually pretty good. Pretty good. Really good. You know, just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division for him. Same with Hobart. So that's it for my TUF Brazil 3 finale post-fight analysis. If you have any comments, just leave them below. That's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.